A priority of the new president and Congress will be reining in the giants of social media. On this, Democrats and Republicans agree. Their target is a federal law known as Section 230. In a single sentence, it set off the Big Bang, helping to create the universe of Google, Facebook, Twitter, and the rest. Some critics of the law say that it leaves social media free to ignore lies, hoaxes, and slander that can wreck the lives of innocent people. One of those critics is Lenny Posner. After a tragedy in his own life, Posner has become a champion for victims of online lies, people including Matya and Matt Benassi, who overnight became the target of death threats like these.
The story will continue in a moment.
We're going to put a bullet in their skull. Let's load up the trucks. Let's go get them. Let's hang them. They posted our address, our full address, where we live.
The hate, focused on Matya and Matt Benassi, was unleashed by a hoax that claims she brought COVID-19 into the world.
It's changed and migrated over the 70-plus videos that they've had about us, but...
Wait, 70?
Yeah, if you actually go through all the videos, there is a total of 70 videos across multiple YouTube channels.
The videos claim Matya Benassi carried the virus to China on a bicycle. She was invited there as a member of a U.S. military cycling team. Matya is a Dutch immigrant, American citizen, and soldier who served in Iraq. In 2019, during an international military Olympics, she crashed in Wuhan, where COVID-19 was discovered 2 months later. Her collision with the internet began after an innocent article about the race.
And somebody came across it and it had Wuhan in, and they took a run with it. Oh, we got a person.
Your name, the name Wuhan, and the rest only takes a lot of imagination.
Correct.
What were they saying about you?
First they said I brought it to China, and when I crashed, I spread it, and that I spread it in the hospital, which I never was in a hospital. All these lies about vials in my bicycle hitting, and I have no idea.
It's going to be this person by the name of Matya Benassi, and we're going to follow.
The absurdity was spelled out, literally, by a hoax peddler named George Webb. He has a following among the deep state phony conspiracy crowd. What has this meant to you?
I was looking over my shoulder a lot. I was scared for my life.
You were taking all that seriously.
Yes. Once my address was posted, that was it for me. That did it, because they put me in danger, my family.
There was like 60 or 70 death threats over the span of, 4 or 5 weeks.
They called the police and the FBI, which got them nowhere.
And the reason why the FBI and the police don't want to talk to you is because even though we were receiving death threats, they didn't say, we're coming to the Benassis to kill them tonight.
They need a crime to have been committed.
That's correct.
And you're trying to prevent a crime from being committed.
Absolutely.
Right about now, you might be thinking they should sue, but that's the problem. They can't file hundreds of lawsuits against internet trolls hiding behind aliases, and they can't sue the internet platforms because of that law, known as Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996. Written before Facebook or Google were invented, Section 230 says in just 26 words that internet platforms are not liable for what their users post.
That means that if I were to post something about you on Facebook that was awful and defamatory, and you actually had a viable defamation lawsuit, you could sue me, but you can't sue Facebook.
Jeff Kosseff teaches law and wrote a book called The 26 Words That Created the Internet. But help me understand, the same is not true for other forms of media. If somebody says something defamatory on 60 Minutes or on Fox or CNN or in the New York Times, those organizations can be sued. So why not Google, YouTube, Facebook?
So the difference between a social media site and, let's say, the letters to the editor page of the New York Times is the vast amount of content that they deliver. So, I mean, you might have 5 or 10 letters to the editor on a page. You could have, I think it's 6,000 tweets per second. And so Section 230 really recognizes how exceptional the internet is and says, we want to encourage this marketplace of ideas. 25 years later, that marketplace has a lot of really great stuff, but it also has a lot of really terrible products in that marketplace. And that's really what's driving this debate right now.
Matya and Matt Benassi quickly discovered the law was not on their side, so they turned to Lenny Posner, who had suffered in the same way.
I was being attacked. The memory of my son's very short life was being attacked, and I just wasn't going to stand for that.
The very short life of Posner's son, Noah, ended at Connecticut's Sandy Hook Elementary School in 2012 with 25 others. The gunshots of a madman have ricocheted online ever since.
Conversations denying the tragedy, accusing the government of staging it.
What was the most hurtful thing they said about you?
That Noah did not die, that I'm not Noah's father. It all revolves around the notion that these are staged shootings, that they're scripted events, that I'm an actor, that I'm paid to fake the death of a child.
Before the COVID pandemic, we hired theatrical makeup artists to disguise Posner for his safety. He's pursued by death threats. One woman left a voicemail saying, "Death is coming for you real soon." She landed in prison sooner. How many times have you had to move your family?
Around 7 times.
He's targeted because he's invented ways to fight back. He copyrighted photos of his son to control how they're used. He published a letter to Facebook's CEO that read, "You have deemed our lives are less important than providing a safe haven for hate." This was meant by you and your ex-wife to be public shaming of Facebook.
That has been really the only effective way to get change for online platforms.
After the letter, a Facebook manager called Posner.
It began a relationship with Facebook that helped them learn about the material that is being posted on their platform and how it is abusive, defamatory.
Have you seen a difference, a practical difference in Facebook?
Yes, it's almost all gone.
Posner expanded his work into a nonprofit called the Honor Network that applies what he has learned to help others.
That's when I reached out to Lenny Posner. He had volunteers that were fighting harassment. And I said, "Lenny, I want this video to come down." And he said, "I will help you do that."
By himself, Andy Parker couldn't get video of his daughter's murder off of Google's YouTube.
I really expected them to do the right thing. Their motto was, "Don't be evil." And for a while, they did a pretty good job of it. But now they're the personification of evil.
In 2015, reporter Allison Parker and cameraman Adam Ward were shot on camera by a fired co-worker. The scene has been posted hundreds of times. This one got more than 600,000 views. And to the right, the automatic ad means the person who posted this made money, and so did YouTube.
We shouldn't have to be the ones policing their platform. Their terms of service say, we don't allow this. We don't allow violent content. We don't allow harassment. My biggest beef with Google and YouTube and Facebook, for that matter, is that video is still out there. It's still out there today. In essence, they profit from my daughter's murder, and I can't abide by that.
Do you worry about threats?
No, I really don't.
Why do you feel so brave?
Because Allison would expect nothing less.
You're still her dad.
Yeah. I'm her dad. Always will be, and I will fight like hell for her.
Lenny Posner flagged Allison Parker videos for YouTube to remove. YouTube wrote us, "There is no place on YouTube for content that exploits this horrendous act, and we have spent the last several years investing in tools and policies to quickly remove it." YouTube told us it now prioritizes all requests from Posner's Honor Network. Why do you think the online platforms have not been effective in enforcing their own terms of service?
I don't think they were prepared for their online platforms to be used this way. I think they were more focused on growth and expansion and likely had more of an idealized notion of the internet and the way it would be used for the greater good.
An idealized notion of human nature.
Yeah, well, yes.
Posner also has been successful pulling down much of that COVID-19 lie that shadows Matya and Matt Benassi. He got hoax peddler George Webb
The real identity or
kicked off YouTube. Recently, some platforms took first steps toward editing their users. Facebook and Twitter flagged dubious content during the election. Now they're doing the same for myths about COVID-19. Based on what you've had to learn about all these things, what do you think the solution could be?
This is really, really hard, right? Because Section 230, when that was written, it was probably done with the intent that social media companies would police themselves in some manner. And social media companies haven't done that very well. They need to police themselves quicker, or the government needs to step in and figure out some mechanism to make them liable, because making them liable would make them police themselves.
But making social media liable would also mean Facebook, Twitter, even Wikipedia and Yelp couldn't exist as we know them. President-elect Biden wants to revoke Section 230. The federal government is already suing to break up Facebook and Google. No one can say what social media 2.0 will look like, or whether the innocent will ever be protected from a worldwide web of lies.
What happens when harassment goes offline and into the real world?
Terrorizing someone is not free speech.
At 60minutesovertime.com.